Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Mark. The apostles gathered together with Jesus and reported all they had done and taught. He said to them, "Come away by yourselves to a deserted place and rest a while." People were coming and going in great numbers, and they had no opportunity even to eat. So they went off in the boat by themselves to a deserted place. People saw them leaving, and many came to know about it. They hastened there on foot from all the towns and arrived at the place before them. When Jesus disembarked and saw the vast crowd, his heart was moved for pity for them, for they were like sheep without a shepherd. And he began to teach them many things. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
This Gospel from Mark chapter 6, beginning with verse 30, is often used at the beginning of a retreat. As Jesus welcomes his disciples back who have just come from their missionary journey, and they're filled with excitement, but they're also exhausted from the demands of ministry. And so Jesus says to them, "Come away to a deserted place to rest a while." What a perfect invitation for retreat. From the busyness of our lives to go to a deserted place like Barrington, Illinois, to come and rest a while. The problem with using that text at the beginning of the retreat, as wonderful as that invitation is, as Paul Harvey used to say, the rest of the story, which is when they get to the deserted place, it's not a deserted place. It's filled with people who are clamoring to hear the word of God and also to be healed. Plan B. Isn't that how God so often works in our life? We have our plans, and then something happens that throws it up in the air, and we can throw our hands up in the air in frustration and say, "God, what are you doing?" Or we can understand, as happens here in Mark chapter 6, that something more wonderful is transpiring, that God has another plan in place. And so Jesus adjusts his plans to the reality of what is, that there are all these people who are clamoring to hear the word of God, and he preaches. And he just doesn't go on for 7 to 10 minutes. Jesus speaks at great length to the people, such that they become hungry, and it's evening. And it becomes the course of one of the greatest miracles that Jesus has performed, that's recorded in all 4 of the scriptures because it made such a dramatic impact, of feeding of the thousands of people who were gathered together. So we've got our plans, let's come away and rest, and then the reality of dealing with what is. And if we don't despair in the midst of that, but we trust that God has another plan and that he's not going to abandon us, that he recognizes the situation that we're in, and we ask for the help we need, then we trust it will be given. Perhaps not in exactly the way that we think it will come. Remember that as Jesus is going on and he's preaching and they're in this deserted place, the disciples say, this is their plan, send the people away to the town so they can go buy some food for themselves. But Jesus says, give them some food yourselves. And it becomes the occasion for this great miracle of the feeding of the thousands. Ask for what you want. Put your need before God in holy confidence, and then trust that God will somehow make a way out of no way. That's one of the major themes of the spiritual exercises, is St. Ignatius teaches us, pray from your desire. What is it that you want? Knock, seek, search, ask, put that desire before the Lord. And it's not like, oh God, help me, help me, help me. Don't pray in panic. Pray in trust that God knows our needs and wants our happiness at least as much as we do. And God knows better how to achieve that. Isn't that the lesson we learn in our first reading today from the first book of Kings, where Solomon, the Lord appears to Solomon in a dream and says, ask for whatever you want. And Solomon asks for a wise and discerning heart. And the Lord smiles upon that request and grants it in abundance, and not only gives Solomon what he asks for, but he gives him wealth and prosperity, which he hasn't asked for. And we know that Solomon was blessed with extraordinary wisdom, and the Queen of Sheba comes from the ends of the earth to see his court and to listen to his wisdom. But we also know that the story goes on, and that Solomon built many political alliances through foreign marriages. And those many wives that Solomon had turned his wise and discerning heart away from the Lord. And he started to worship false gods. And the end of Solomon's story is not a happy one, because he stopped focusing on the Lord and putting his trust in the Lord, and put his trust in his own wisdom and his own political alliances. I think the lesson there is that it's not ask once and then we're saved for the rest of our life. It's continuing to work out our salvation, as St. Paul says, in fear and trembling, not in servile fear, but of recognizing our own vulnerability, our own weakness, our own sin, and continuing each day to ask for what it is that we need to keep our eyes fixed on the Lord. For as long as our ticker is ticking, as long as there is breath in our lungs, we need to continue to seek the Lord, recognizing that we can get lost. We can step off the path. We want to remain faithful all the days of our life, continuing to ask for that grace of constant fidelity. And this is not just asking for spiritual gifts, it's asking for our strengthening in our marriages, asking for help in our jobs, asking for graces given to our children and grandchildren, to those we love. All of the needs that we have physically, emotionally, financially, spiritually, interpersonally. If it's a real need, put it before the Lord and trust that the Lord will hear that and give us not necessarily what we want, but always what we need to continue to grow in grace. I think that's the bottom line in our faith, trusting that the Lord loves us, knows what we need, and when we ask, God will give us the graces that we seek. Amen? Amen.
Heart to heart, hand in hand, praying for grace to understand. Spirit of Jesus, open our hearts to live and to love the gospel